Let's go. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on our Shelter in Place webinar. For those of you on in the attendees, if you could send a chat and let me know that you guys are in and can hear me and can see everything is working, I'd appreciate that. Awesome. Great. So welcome to our webinar. I'm Michael Minson. I'm the owner of the Level Up Group at Keller Williams. And today we're going to talk about sheltering in a second place and buying a second home, specifically in the Bay Area. Before we get a little bit of housekeeping, thanks Dan, appreciate that. A little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions, we'd like to make this as interactive as possible. So just put your questions in the chat and I'll be the panelist. I'll moderate to our different presenters here. And we'll try to get your question answered within the hour. And if we can't, then send us your email and we'll be able to respond afterwards. We are also recording this. And if you're not able to catch this or have to leave early, or you've got somebody in your network that wants to look at it, you can send them to levelupgroupsf.com/second home, levelupgroupsf.com/second home. And we'll have the recorded webinar up probably by the end of the day. Certainly within 24 hours. So let's jump in here. Today, our goal here is really to understand the headlines that we're seeing. We're seeing all kinds of stuff on the news and on social media about what's happening with the housing market and what's happening with a lot of fears in the market. So we're going to explore that for a minute. And then we're going to take a deeper dive into what are people in the Bay Area actually saying. So we did a COVID-19 survey on housing and people's perceptions of how it's changing. And we're going to share some of those highlights with you today. Then we're going to jump into what are we seeing actually, what is the data telling us about San Francisco market? And then we're going to talk about if you're feeling a little anxious or antsy or ready to move and not sure where to go, not sure what your options are, we're going to look at that. And then the majority of the conversation today is really going to go deep into exploring 3 specific areas that are right around us, Sonoma County, Napa Valley, and Half Moon Bay. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our amazing panelists. Tracy Hsieh is with the Level Up Group. She's a residential specialist. From Napa Valley, we've got Elizabeth Olcott. From Sonoma County, we've got Allison Norman. And from Half Moon Bay, we've got Juliette Kulda. Thank you guys all for being with us today. We're honored to be here with you. So this is the headlines, right? This is not new. This is not surprising to most of you, I'm sure. We're seeing a lot of panic and a lot of fear out there in the news anyway, that is the pandemic remaking the city? Will cities survive? Is the office dead? Urban flight, is that a real thing? And so we've been hearing this since the pandemic started in early March, certainly for the Bay Area. And so we've wanted to understand, is this a real thing or is this just fake news? And so we've done a survey. We've done a survey in April and we did another survey in July. Not scientific by any stretch, but we got about 100 responses. And these are people that we know that are clients of ours or partners of ours or Facebook friends or whatever, people that we've come across. And we've asked them 2 important questions. The first one is, has the health crisis caused you to rethink living in a dense urban environment? And we took a poll in April and we took a poll in July. And what we found that in April, 70% of the respondents were not really rethinking an urban lifestyle. Some were, but the vast majority of people were not. And over the past 4 or 5 months, what we've seen is we've seen some perceptions change. And about 74% of the respondents in July are starting to have a second thought, that they're a maybe or a yes. So that's a pretty significant change that I think is worth paying attention to. We asked a similar question, but slightly different. Has COVID-19 changed your real estate plans? Same time period, April and July. In April, 68% of respondents had put their real estate plans on hold. And then in July, what we found was that 73% of the respondents were right back on track. So they had not changed their plans after all. So in April, there was kind of a freeze in the market. I think we all felt it. Things weren't trading, people were scared, everybody's hunkered down. 68% of the people either they put their plans on short-term or long-term hold. And then 4 or 5 months later, by July, people are feeling a little more comfortable, feeling a little bit more ready to get back out there. And so we're feeling that in the market. And so I've asked Tracy Hsieh with the Level Up Group, representing San Francisco, to talk us a little bit about what we're seeing actually in the data and on the feet on the street. Tracy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're seeing in the market?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Tracy Hsieh. I'm a residential expert here with the Level Up Group. I represent both buyers and sellers exclusively in San Francisco, and my specialty is working with luxury properties. So on average, about 7,500 properties transact every year. 30% of that are single family homes. 45%, that's almost half of inventory, are condos, and the remaining are a combination of multifamily, retail space, and restaurant commercial space. So the most affected, as we know, are the commercial and retail space with COVID-19 restrictions and shelter-in-place restrictions. It's been difficult for businesses to operate as they normally would. We've seen also impact in multifamily. About 2 months ago, the city of San Francisco expanded eviction control to include tenants that have been negatively affected by the pandemic. So multifamily that have tenants, we're seeing some impact there. Now, how's that done for single family homes? Michael, if you want to go to the next slide. Believe it or not, our average prices have actually remained unchanged and have actually increased from 1.7 million to about 1.71 million. The large demand has really shifted because buyers are now asking for things like additional space now that everyone's home, more space for the family, an additional bedroom that can be converted into an office. And so things like patio space, balcony, outdoor, more square footage, all those things are now in high demand. A recent example is our 821 Moultrie Street. It's a 4-bedroom house in Bernal Heights, which is a fantastic neighborhood. The location within Bernal, I would say, is probably a B. And we were actually able to sell it off market because the demand for single family houses are so high. Single family houses, well, what about condos? Well, that's where we're seeing a little bit of an impact. As you can see, Q2 of last year, we were at 1.25 million. It has since gone down about 4% to 1.2 million. Now, because condos are such a big part of our inventory, if you dig a little bit deeper, you break down that data, we're seeing that 1 to 2 bedroom condos that are maybe in not the best locations, have something funky about, the floor plan doesn't come with parking. Those have been languishing on the market, longer days on market, a little bit less demand. The 2 to 3 bedroom condos that have parking, have amenities, have low HOAs are actually doing fairly well. So far this year, around 2,700 properties have sold. That's roughly 33% of where we would normally be, even though we're halfway through the year. In April and May, we had a very sharp decrease in properties, just like Michael mentioned. It's gone up since then. We're still at about 50% or so inventory from what we normally would see on an average year. The fantastic news is that even with reduced inventory, the demand for properties is still really high. So the average prices for condos and for single houses are actually still pretty high. Another monumental shift, I would say, is in how buyers are viewing properties. In San Francisco, we require that buyers exhaust all online options before booking a private appointment. Our team has added additional powerful virtual tools, I should say, that allow buyers to exhaust all online options before booking an appointment with us. We're noticing that even though the overall number of buyers coming through has been reduced, the type of buyers coming through are vetted, they're motivated, and they're very serious about purchasing right now. So if you're thinking about purchasing in San Francisco, it's still a fantastic time. I would focus on the commercial, the retail, multifamily, and condo space. I think it's there's some really fantastic opportunities right now. That's about it. Give it back to you, Michael.
Awesome. Thanks, Tracy. Really, really informative stuff there. Um, a lot of people that we've talked to are feeling a little antsy. They're feeling a little trapped. They're certainly over the quarantine, that's for sure. And a lot of people are exploring, what are my options? And so there are a lot of things that you don't just have to sell and leave town, right? You have a lot of options. One of those is to really just kind of hunker down and wait and see what happens. That is certainly an option, and that's probably what the vast majority of people out there are going to do. They're just going to wait and see. Typically, the San Francisco market comes back in 2.5 years, and in the past 3 recessions anyway. And so there's a real likelihood that everything's going to be fine. Let's just wait and see. Some people are just kind of over it. Maybe this is a triggering event. Maybe there's other factors. Maybe there's lifestyle change. Maybe there's family pulling you east or overseas. But relocating out of the area is certainly something that is an option. We are pretty bullish on San Francisco, and we're not advocating for people to leave, but it's happening. Some people are, another option is to upgrade within your area. So upgrading to a more appropriate home for your needs. Maybe you need a second home office. Maybe you definitely have to have outdoor space. Maybe the balcony on your 1-bedroom condo is not cutting it. So upgrading to another home is certainly an option. Remodeling your existing home. If you love your current space and it's just not quite perfect, this is a good time to invest some of that money that you're not spending on trips to Europe or Asia or Africa for a summer vacation. Reinvest some of that money in the house and make it the home that you really want it to be. Or maybe what we're here today to talk about is buy a second home. And so I've got just a quick plug here for our team. Any of these things that you're interested in doing, the Level Up Group and our partners here on this call can absolutely help you. We are a team of talented professionals. We're committed to helping people reach their real estate goals and level up their lives. That's why we created the Level Up Group. That's why we exist. And that's the end of the plug. So back to the presentation. Things to consider about a second home. Is it a right decision for you? One, of course, is financial. How much can you really afford? And what you want to look at is what a lender, if you're getting a loan, they're going to look at your total debt on all that real estate assets that you own, plus any other expenses, car payments, credit card payments. And they're going to compare that to how much income you make, right? That's your debt to income ratio. If it's out of whack, then you're probably not going to be able to afford to get a loan unless you get reduce some of that debt. A way to increase your purchasing power is to refinance your primary residence. Take some of that cash in order to put a bigger down payment to reduce your monthly payment on the second home. So if you've got any questions about that, we are not we're not mortgage brokers. We certainly can connect you with the people that can answer those questions. Of course, location is always important in real estate. And what's important when you think about a second home is it close enough for me to get back to my home base in a reasonable amount of time if I have to? And is it close enough so that I'll actually use it frequently enough to justify the expense? So if you've got a home, and one of the reasons that I asked Elizabeth, Juliette, and Allison to join us is because all of these cities and towns are within an hour and a half max, hour 45 on a busy day from downtown San Francisco. So to buy a house in Aspen or in Asheville or in Miami sounds great, but if it takes a huge amount of effort to get there, you're probably not going to use it as much. And that's something to consider. Quality of life, of course. What do you want your life to be like in this space? Do you want to be at the beach? Do you want to be at the lake? Do you want to be in the forest? Do you want to be by the river? And then next thing to consider is income. Not your income, but the income produced from the property. Is that important to you? And if it is that a long-term tenant or is that a short-term overnight tenant, Airbnb style? And one of the things to consider when you're thinking about short-term rentals is that every city and every town has their own rules. And so it's really important that you understand what the rules are locally if you're buying it for short-term rental. So Sonoma, for example, most cities in Sonoma County don't allow short-term rentals. They're a little more lenient on the coastal side and over by Russian River. But those are subject to change, and they could change at any time. Today, it's okay. In some places, tomorrow, it's hard to tell. Napa, very strict. They've got 41 houses that are permitted to allow short-term rentals, and that's probably going to be it for a long time. It's possible it could change, but I find it very unlikely. And then Half Moon Bay is very friendly to vacation rentals. HOAs have different restrictions, of course, and that applies to everyone. But it's really important if you are thinking about buying a second home as a short-term rental option, that to really understand the local market and what is permissible. So enough about that. Let's jump into what do we know about Napa Valley. So we've invited our business partner, Elizabeth Olcott, to tell us all about Napa Valley. Elizabeth, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you love about Napa Valley?
Alrighty, thank you, Michael. Hello, everybody. So Napa Valley, I've been living here for the past 18 years and have my real estate career has been in its entirety. What I love about Napa is just walkability to downtown. We have the Oxbow Public Marketplace, and yet 10 minutes pretty much from any area you can get to gorgeous parks for hiking and biking. Up Valley, we have both state parks, so there's also streams and rivers running through that park. Can do kayaking on the Napa River, so it's just very diverse. And then of course, the Michelin star dining and world-class chefs throughout the Napa Valley. So, oh, I think I forgot the wine tasting. We have over 800 wineries, and many of those are boutique wineries and have partnerships with many different wineries to help guests and second home buyers to be able to enjoy the valley to its fullest. All right, a little bit about Napa Valley statistics. So the median home price, very different than San Francisco and some of the other areas, is $781,000. Our average days on the market right now are 56 days. We have about 3 months of inventory, meaning that if nothing else comes on the market, we would be out of inventory. A balanced market in Napa is more like 5 months. So we remain more in that fast-moving, competitive market. Our population in the whole county is a little over 137,000. In Napa proper, we're at about 75,000. Oh, one thing I didn't mention was Lake Berryessa, which is literally a 40-minute drive, gorgeous lake, lots of boating, boat rentals, camping. So that's something else you can do while you're in the Napa Valley also. Lots of different things to do. Okay. This is a house that's in town, that's on 2500 Rollingwood. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It had had some updates, 1,933 square feet on a lot size of about 7,000 square feet. And that sold for $805,000. This is in the College Manor neighborhood. It's it's right in that median pocket. Great walking area in this neighborhood. And then we have 2956 Woodcrest Court. Beautiful lot, backs to open space, 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2,900 square feet. This home looks very beautiful, as you can see from the outside. It has, you know, nice curb appeal. However, in the interior, it needed to be updated. So when you look at this house, if it had been completely updated, it would have been more like 1.4. In this home and in the home prior, multiple offers on both. When we see multiple offers in Napa, they go over anywhere from 15 to 25,000 and sometimes up to 75 at the high. So we don't have the same as in other Bay Area communities where you see the 6 figures going over asking. And then this is something that's can be very interesting to a lot of folks. So I've partnered with Niner Homes recently. They've come into our market, and what they're doing is second home ownership as a 12.5% joint ownership. So there, for every home, there are 8 1/8 ownership interests available. And we've done a couple of them here in the Valley and very successful. So this is a $5 million home that each ownership interest sells for $694,375. And then what that provides to you is roughly 6 weeks a year, but it's true second home ownership, deeded interest in an LLC, K1 at the end of the year. So with this one here, we launched it a couple weeks ago, and we still have a few ownership interests left out of the 8. So happy to talk with anybody offline about this and answer any questions about how this works.
Elizabeth, I have a question. This seems a lot like a timeshare. Is it a timeshare? And if not, what makes it not a timeshare?
Timeshare is a really broad term. So two brothers buying a home together in an LLC. In a broad term, that would be a timeshare. But when most people hear timeshare, they think of resort timeshare, and it's a flawed model. That is not what this is. That model is costly to own, hard to sell, and it has multiple of the same units in the communities where our homes are very unique. So what we've done is take the best of the timeshare and refine it into the true second home ownership. It's based on what people are really looking about and what they care about, with all the benefits of real estate ownership. One of the differences, if you think about this, if you were to purchase this home outright, your expenses would be roughly $14,000 a month. When you purchase a 1/8 ownership interest, your monthly, including taxes, insurance, repairs, maintenance, all of it, is $1,702 a month. So it makes sense for a lot of people, whether you can afford to own a whole second home. Most people don't use it enough to justify it. And so this type of home ownership is really, really moving forward. We're getting a lot of response. I see a couple questions in the chat box. So
Yeah, one of the questions is this a TIC and can it be rented?
Okay, it is not tenants in common. When you have tenants in common, every time somebody wants to sell their property, the deed has to be redone. This is all held in a limited liability company, LLC. And when you want to sell, you can sell on the multiple listing service with a realtor like you would do any other property. And then it is that the one person goes out and another person is added into the LLC.
Mm-hmm.
As far as it being rented, no, this is not Airbnb. This is not VRBO. This is deeded second home ownership to be used by the owners only. Now, you can have family and friends, and you can gift to a family and friend to use it when you're not there, but it is not allowed for rental.
So this is a way to get this is about a $5 or $6 million home, isn't it? All in?
It is, yes.
So it's a way to get an extraordinary home on a magnificent lot with just all the amenities for 1/8 of the price. Is that a good way to look at it?
Yeah, I think that is a good way to look at it. Another thing that's important is that we also have financing, which is very unusual. Typically, it would be only private money, and because of who these folks are that have put together this amazing program, they are partnered with First Republic Bank, and so we are able to offer financing at 50% loan to value, so with 50% down payment, and it's a 10-1 arm, so fixed for 10 years at approximately 4.25% interest. So that also makes this very doable. Very doable.
And then how do they allocate weeks, Elizabeth?
There's a very sophisticated app that is on a rolling 24 months. So if today is July 15th, then it goes to July 15th of 2022. And then tomorrow it's going to be July 16th, 24 months forward. And when the homes close, everybody is launched at the same time. And what we found that's very interesting is people think, oh, everybody wants to be here during Crush. Not true. Some people want to come for the month of February, not during Crush in September, October. So it's also a intelligent app, and there's real people behind it, so that there can be help in saying, if I want the same week you want, or we're very close together, phone calls can be made that can shift somebody by a day in either direction. So it's a very dynamic allocation.
Awesome.
Oh.
Elizabeth, we got your contact information at the end of it.
Thank
If anybody has additional questions, please reach out to Elizabeth directly. Next up is, thank you, Elizabeth. Next up is Allison Norman, our Sonoma County partner. Allison, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you love so much about Sonoma County?
Okay, good morning. Thank you. I am Allison Norman with Keller Williams Realty. I grew up in Marin County, quickly moved up to Sonoma County as soon as I could. Just kind of was drawn to it. I love the ag part of it. We have a lot of agriculture here in Sonoma County. And then we have the wine industry. We have a lot of great food, and we have the redwoods and then the coast. I'm a real water person, so I love that I'm 20 minutes from the coast. And I can go drive through the redwoods, and we have Lake Sonoma as well, which is a man-made lake with lots of recreation and camping around that. So I began my real estate career in 2006, just as the market was tumbling and everyone was running the opposite direction. And I said, I'm going to go sell real estate. So I love what I do. I love to take people around Sonoma County and show them all of what we have to offer. So that's me in a nutshell. So welcome to Sonoma County. We have, the thing when we started talking about this webinar with Sonoma County, and looking at, pick a couple of areas in Sonoma County, and there just aren't a couple of areas. It's such a diverse and such a large county that it's really hard to break it down into here's a couple of examples of Sonoma County, because there really are so many different parts of Sonoma County, and it's so different and diverse. But right now, as far as real estate goes for the county as a whole, we're at 715,000 at medium home values. We're average days on the market 41. We have about a month, almost 2 months supply, 1.8 months supply of inventory. And that's when you're looking at the broad picture. So if you break it down city by city and area by area, those numbers change a little. But in a whole, Sonoma County has just under 2 months inventory, which is pretty tight. We are, just like Elizabeth said, 5 to 6 months of inventory is considered a balanced market. So we are still a seller's market. For the most part. There are some pocket areas where things are moving a little slower. We have a population just under 500,000. It's a very, very big county. We're bordered by Marin, Napa, Mendocino counties, and the Pacific Ocean. Lots to do. I mentioned hiking, camping, golf, swimming, boating, kayaking, wine tasting, beer tasting. We have a big beer industry here. Lots of microbreweries and food, lots and lots of food. The woods, the quiet woods, and then walks on the beach. Favorite things to do. So, as I mentioned, Sonoma County, when, it covers 1,768 square miles. That's 1.132 million acres, including mountains, valleys, vineyards, world-class wineries, and the list goes on and on. Bottom line is it's a very big county and very diverse. So I broke down the numbers. These are median sold values by area. So you look at some of the big price, kind of the more touristy areas, which are really kind of also more of your second home markets where people are wanting to be. That would be Sonoma, out at the coast. Healdsburg, Sebastopol is a lot of country property out in Sebastopol, and people that are looking for that big little house on an acre where they can have some animals and a little hobby vineyard and all that. They're looking at Sebastopol for that. And then we have the coastal towns of Sea Ranch, and out at Bodega Harbor, Bodega Bay, and I'll cover that in the next slide. Petaluma, Cloverdale. So I just kind of broke it down. The river area, Russian River, you go Forestville, all the way out to the coast. That area is the lowest price area in Sonoma County. And that doesn't necessarily mean that, prices are really cheap. There are actually some million plus, houses up there. But when you look at the median, because there are some homes in the 300-400, they're a little hard to find, and they usually need a lot of work. They're very small, but you can find some way out in the woods in the, 400 price range. So, yeah, so it's a really diverse county. So I wanted to look at the eclectic West County because it is very different. I mean, if you look at my two slides, you've got a 1.3 million property in Sebastopol, which is a real, would be a great second home, get the family out there. It's, big enough to, 2,400 square feet, big enough to, or 26, sorry, big enough to invite your friends and have a great second home, wine country home. And then you look at here over in, in Guerneville, where you can get something in the, under 400,000, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, walk to the river, drop your kayak in and float down the river. So they're very different price points, when you look at West County. So, and there's a lot of different options. You could be in the trees, there's some sunny areas, there's some right on the river, and there's some way up in the hills if you want to really get away from it all. And then, looking at coastal Sonoma, even coastal Sonoma, there's a lot of variation. There's 4 specific areas when you get out to the coast. There's at the very top of Sonoma County is Timber Cove and Sea Ranch. Those are the 2. Timber Cove is a little off the coast up in the woods. Sea Ranch, which is the 3rd picture over, is a development, kind of a community out there right on the coast. And it is one of the last areas really that you can actually buy some land still within that community and build a home. And between that and then there's Jenner, which is up at the top of Bodega, up at the top of the Sonoma Coast, and then Bodega Harbor is a golf community. We get a lot of people, Bodega Harbor, coming in from Sacramento area like that. When I see a lot of people coming that way because they are in the valley and they want to get out to the cool air. And those properties, there's a wide range in prices. Timber Cove, Jenner, those are a little lower price. When you get into the Sea Ranch, you really get up into the $1 million to $2 million price point. So it really depends on what you're looking for out at the coast. Very wide variation of prices. And then the other one I wanted to take a look at is Healdsburg. And Healdsburg has really come a long way from its roots as a real small agricultural town, 50 years ago, even 40 years ago, and just suddenly burst into the scene as the wine, the place to go for wine and food. And Healdsburg actually has a river. The Russian River runs through Healdsburg, and a lot of people don't realize that. So there's an area in upper, kind of North Healdsburg, northeast, that is called Fitch Mountain. And that is very similar to the Russian River area in that it has a lot of really kind of quirkiness to it, a lot of, little cabins that have been in people's families for years. And, there are river properties along there as well. And in those you can pay, usually between 500 and over $1 million for something out there on Fitch Mountain. And then in Healdsburg, there's some just, really extravagant properties. And then there's also some townhouses. So I put the townhouse in here because I think it's, maybe a good option for somebody looking at a second home that doesn't want all that maintenance of, so they've got a townhouse where they can pay HOA, they can have a pool and have a place to go in the wine country without having to have all that maintenance. So, or there's just the big, the big property, sprawling property, classic wine country homes up there. And those, we go up to, $5 million or higher. So Healdsburg is one of our most expensive areas in Sonoma County. At the same time, there are some properties that are affordable. So it depends on what you're looking for.
Thanks, Allison. One of the questions that Jenna just asked is, and you lived through the Santa Rosa. We all lived through the Santa Rosa fires. You were in the Santa Rosa fires.
I sure was.
And, that's had a huge impact on all sorts of things. How has the county adapted to help owners feel more confident that a second huge wildfire isn't going to come? Or can you speak to the risk in Sonoma now? I think it's on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, it's there. It's on all of our minds. It is a risk, and we all have a little PTSD, I think, from it. I have been through 2 evacuations. My house was spared in the 2017 Tubbs fire. My daughter lived in Coffee Park, and literally right next door to her is where the fire stopped. So yeah, we've been through it, and we're all very nervous. And then last year when everybody evacuated, and I think you all experienced that down in San Francisco as well, where the PG&E, the planned shutoffs. So that's something, yeah, we are seriously kind of taking into account when we're putting a home on the market, is looking at, you know, is it in an area that has that planned power shutoff likeliness, which is typically the east side of 101. And insurance is a real issue, you know. So as far as what the county is doing to assure us, I don't know that they are, you know. I think that I don't know about that. It's in everyone's mind. It's just kind of something you live with. It's like being out at the river. You understand that it might flood, you know, and we pay additional insurance because of that. One thing that we're having a lot of trouble with is that new wildfire area zoning, and a lot of insurance companies won't even touch a property if it's in that area. And so it's a tough one. I had a client back out last year that decided, it was right in the middle of the Kincaid fire, the power shutoffs, and she said, you know what, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to buy in Sonoma County right now. So it is an issue, but it, you know, we love it here, and it's something you just learn to live with, like California and earthquakes, you know, Russian River and the floods. You just you know, we live with it. So
it's a difficult topic, and it's important. And I think when I bought Allison, I bought, as you know, I own a second home in Guerneville, and I just absolutely love it. And when we bought, flood insurance was a major consideration.
Right.
And so when you're buying a second home, you don't really need flood insurance in San Francisco. You don't really need wildfire extra coverage in San Francisco. But when you start going out of area, it's really important that you understand the risks. And there's a disclosure, natural hazards disclosure, that goes in infinite detail about what those risks are. But something to keep in mind, and that was a really good question, Jenna.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Allison. Super helpful, super informative. Now I'd like to introduce Juliette Kulda, our business partner out of Half Moon Bay. Juliette, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you love about your area?
Thank you, and thanks, Michael, for this invitation to be on this webinar. I'm actually learning a lot about the areas in northern counties, so thank you all. Yeah, so I have been living in Half Moon Bay better part of 25 years, had moved a couple times, my husband and I, but we came right back. So been here for a while, been selling real estate now for 18 years. We have a team of 12. We do work for the San Mateo County, but our hub and our headquarters is here in Half Moon Bay. And my primary focus on the team is selling the listings, so focusing on the listings, and just love Half Moon Bay. So big part of the community here, we love it. Community is a big part of our town. By the way, San Mateo County, it's again very diverse. The focus, I'm going to be talking about the coast, the 4 cities here on the coast, and a little bit about the South Coast areas. So that's the Ritz-Carlton at the top left. That was kind of a big deal for us. It took a long time to get approved, and maybe 10 years ago the Ritz opened. So they brought with it there was already a gated golf course community called Ocean Colony here on the coast near the Ritz. And when the Ritz opened, they brought in a second golf course, like a world class. So I mean, you'll see tournaments on TV and that kind of thing here hosted at the Ritz. So that's pretty exciting. We do have a lot of other nice hotels, B&Bs. It's more of a resort town. Very quaint, as you can see on the bottom right. That's the Pumpkin Festival, which most people have probably heard of if you lived in the Bay Area. Brings in hundreds of thousands of people. This year, unfortunately, it is canceled. That's kind of incredible after so many years. But here we are getting through all of this. But we do have in addition to Half Moon Bay Pumpkin Fest, there's things like Night of Lights Parade, 4th of July Parade that are more just kind of small community. And I always joke that like half our town is in the parades. It's that kind of town. And then also you can see there on the bottom left, that's Pillar Point Harbor. It's important to note that if you're searching in the multiple listing for Half Moon Bay, you're gonna miss half of the coast, which is 4 cities. It's made up of Half Moon Bay, El Granada, which is where the harbor is, Moss Beach, and Montera. So it is important to know that about the 4 cities that make up a total of about 23,000 residents. And that's approximately just under 7,000 homes. So it's a very small community. You know, we're a little bit landlocked. I mean, we have 1 road in from the north across Devil's Slide. We now have the tunnels from Pacifica. That was another good add to our area, by the way, because that road was a little unreliable. And we come in on the 92 from the peninsula, beautiful drive-in over the nurseries and things like that. Or you come from the south Highway 1. So We do, one nice thing here is on the map, if you look at Half Moon Bay, we're up against the ocean, and we are equidistant basically to 3 major commute areas. So you can go, right, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So if you were to go in Half Moon Bay there in the center, if you go north about 30 miles, you're gonna hit San Francisco, maybe a 45-minute drive, only 25, 30 minutes from SFO, depending on how tight your flight is. And then to the East Bay, another 30-minute or 45 minutes to like the Oakland area, East Bay. And then again, to the South Silicon Valley, we have a lot of Apple executives and, you know, Facebook and all of the, like Silicon Valley commute is very doable also. And we'll often have a family where one will be commuting north to San Francisco downtown, the other one down to Silicon Valley. So it's kind of nice to have that location, but yet you get this quaint, charming, you can go to the next slide, town. And a little bit more about Half Moon Bay. Live, work, and play in Half Moon Bay is a big one. The median home here is 1.3, and that's a little lower than what you'll see in San Mateo County because the money does go a little farther. Now that is starting to change as we're getting a surge to the coast. Ritz, I mentioned the Ritz, the golfing, kayaking, we're full of bed and breakfasts, restaurants when they are open. We also have a ton of like the coastal trail, beaches, hiking, Quarry Park, just tons of parks and things like that. So people move here mainly for the lifestyle. And again, that focus of live, work, and play where you can actually now especially work more from home. And people, we're getting a lot of focus from Silicon Valley. There's a lot of tech money, second homes coming where they want to get off the grid and kind of get out of the grind. That people come and say, I just want my kids to play and get dirty and have fun. And so we're seeing a lot of people looking for second homes or even first homes here for that reason. Real quick about our inventory, it is really tight. You guys have been talking about supply of inventory. We're only a 1-month supply of inventory in all of San Mateo County. So for every 2 homes on the market, we already have 1 pending. And if the houses are priced well in our county, especially in Half Moon Bay, we will be able to just set a 10 or 14-day offer date. And we're not doing open houses, so that gives at least people time to get through. And then we'll look at anywhere from 3 to 4 or 5 offers, maybe more, depending. Okay, I think you go to the next slide. I think I covered Half Moon Bay.
Great.
I just wanted to show you guys 3 properties. This is the first one. This is, I mentioned the median price is 1.3. This is kind of an unusual property, however. This is about a 45-minute drive south of Half Moon Bay in La Honda. And you guys may have heard of Pescadero, La Honda, San Gregorio, Loma Bar. Those are some of the south cities that we also cover. And this was 4 acres in the Redwoods. This was right next to Portola State Park. So what was great about this property, if you like camping, this would be a good alternative to getting like off the grid without having to go into a tent. And this log cabin was built by from the original Redwoods on the property. It is now sold. They started, took a little while to get the right buyer for this property because it is definitely off the grid. Even to get to it, there were some little bridges and dirt roads and things like that in the community. And it did have a second garage with a little studio above the garage. So, and it was very, very, very charming and well done. So again, this one's already sold. Let's go to the next one. Here is kind of a typical, house you'll see around here. And you notice this is a west side. When I say west side, I'm referring to the Highway 1 that goes up and down the coast. So we're west of Highway 1. This is 444 Valdez. We literally are just pending on this one now. We were asking 139 and it did play out and end up getting about 4 or 5 offers, and it's going to close at 1.5. That's mainly because the surge that we're seeing. This house was single story. It was built in 2014, so it's pretty new, approximately 2,000 square feet. You can see from the bottom right there, just kind of fun, really nice, kind of beach house feel to it. And yeah, gives you a feel of that one. And then there's, as you get closer to the ocean, you're going to see properties values go all the way up to 2 million, even 3 million. And somebody, we had talked about eclectic. Coastside is very, very eclectic here. We may have a small kind of bungalow house that needs renovation under $1 million, or you could see a $3 or $4 million house up against the front row. And then you go next. Okay, this is a plug. This one is on the market and we did recently reduce it. I don't know if you can see the price on the top right, if you're, you might be being blocked by our photos there, but the price on this one is just under 2.3 million. So it's 4,000 almost 200 square feet. So just over 4,000 square feet, 5 bedroom, 4 bath, boasts of huge ocean views. It's kind of up on a hill, and it's centrally located on the Half Moon Bay coast side. So this is still in Half Moon Bay, but closer to the harbor. So again, it's about halfway up the coast between Moss Beach or El Granada and Half Moon Bay. It has down on the lower 3 levels. When you walk in the top level, you can walk right into the kitchen with no steps, go down 1 level to the bedrooms and the master, which also has excellent views. And on the bottom level, the 3rd level, you're going down to media room, sauna, exercise room, a hot tub, which is on that bottom right. And then there's a lower yard that's downslope that's terraced. So again, this is what you can buy here right now today. Call us. So we have a virtual tour here if you want to see it too. I can put in the chat box for 2.3 million.
Awesome. Thanks, Juliette. A question for all the panelists. If you're representing a seller in a second home market, maybe they're thinking about selling and going to wherever. What's unique about what a second home buyer is looking for that maybe is different than a primary home?
In Napa, we're seeing a lot of folks coming from San Francisco, and what they're really looking for is more space around them, some land, primarily turnkey homes that are ready to go. Also, if it can be married with, close enough to downtown for walkability. And we have some of those properties that feel like you're out in the country, but you're actually very close to the downtown area for all that happens there.
Yeah, I would say I'm seeing similar in Sonoma County. People want that little bit of land. The other thing is we have a lot, especially out in West County, as you get out to coastal areas, the internet and phone service is not good. So it's a big issue that people coming out to the West County really need to make sure that they can have internet or phone service, especially if they're going to be working from home. So that's something that we're seeing. It's always a question. So it's good as a seller to, think of that ahead of time and find out ways that you can boost that so that, or maybe be able to offer some alternatives to a buyer. And then office space is another one. I think, Michael, you and I talked about that you're seeing that people really absolutely have to have that extra space for an office. So yeah,
even if people want a second home in order to disconnect, they still want to stay connected, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would agree with all of those. I would just add the kind of that low maintenance. Sometimes it depends. Sometimes they do want space and land. Sometimes they want to be like, we have a gated golf course community. They feel they can leave their property and it's safe. Then we have an HOA, and they might just want a condo or a townhouse here, so they don't have a yard. So we're seeing some of that. They don't necessarily have to come and work when they're here at the property, on their property. Lifestyle change, I think, is what inspires people to get second homes, because they can, like, for example, when you come to Half Moon Bay, and I have experienced this going into Napa and Sonoma counties, and when you go, you just feel like you're in a different, everything comes alive in a sense of a new space. And I think a lifestyle change, however they agree, they need to have internet. The person that bought the La Honda property on 4 acres, part of their contingency was to do a Zoom call with the seller. So they made sure the internet was great from the property. And also near the great restaurant. So they want to come and unplug, be able to work when they need to, and maybe be walkability to kind of be able to walk out and go to restaurants and things like that.
Yeah, I'm seeing that as well, and wanting to have friends up, so that they're thinking about not just where they can shelter in place, but I guess when we can start socially distance events, but they are having that thought process of would it be somewhere I could invite some friends over and they can kind of have their own space.
Great. Is there anything that panelists, you guys want to add that we didn't cover before we wrap? We've got everybody's contact information here. If anybody wants to reach out to one of our specialists, one of our ambassadors for their region, please screen capture their information, and we'll send all this out as well. You guys have anything you want to wrap with?
One more thought would be that in the kind of second home ownership that I was talking about, where you're purchasing a smaller percentage of a whole home, it totally takes out the headache of owning a second home. So you come in, it's your house, you have things of your own there. When you leave, and you're done. So that's just also another thought that popped into my head.
I want to thank Elizabeth for that because we have some amazing properties, but it can be overwhelming to think of the amount of money for one house if you're only going to use it maybe every couple months or once a month or something like that. So I love the idea of a lot of people say, can we go in on this with somebody? How would that work?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm definitely going to be following up with Elizabeth to find out more about that. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
We have a question from the panelists about lending. Tracy, what are we seeing? I know you're not a mortgage broker, but what are you seeing from your clients' experience on lending? Is there any kind of impact that people are seeing from a possible second wave or a second wave? And how are rates?
Rates are extremely low. They have been really for the last 12 plus months. They've just gone down again.
Yeah.
And I also clients when they're considering purchasing to talk to big banks and then also throw in brokers and credit unions. And they're all kind of roughly, if you have, again, really great credit score, between, I've seen as low as 2.8% up to about 3.5. Historically, that is just incredibly low. And if you have really fantastic credit, it's very common now to see about 3%, 3.1% for interest rate. And we expect to see that. It is an election year. Generally, we see interest rates stay the same as they try to kind of bolster the economy. So I don't see that changing until end of this year, if not next year.
Thanks, Tracy. Michael Haig just chimed in that rates are as low as 3s for the secondary homes. So that's it's still it's phenomenal time. I personally think that residential real estate is probably going to pull us out of this recession. I think because interest rates are so low and because home is so important that people aren't spending a lot of money on vacations and travel and things like that, and they're reinvesting in home because it's so front of mind with everybody. So I encourage you all to be safe. Thank you all for coming. Wash your hands, and we'll post this on levelupgroupsf.com/secondhome. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Michael.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.